Welcome to The Bridge, Your Health, Your Voice, the official podcast for the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Pharmacy Patients Program. The Patients Program is the bridge between the community and researchers. The Patients Program created this partnership to help researchers listen to the community's voice in order to build a bridge to an effective learning healthcare community.
Today, I'm your special guest host, Michelle Medeiros, and I have amazing guests joining us again. We have Casey Jackson, Aaron Knight, and Edie Edens, who joined us for Hidden Heroes Part 1. They'll be introducing themselves a little bit later. But I want to celebrate a few fun facts about Hidden Heroes in Clinical Research Part 1. In 2 months, it was in the top 15 most viewed videos on the Patients Program YouTube page. That's inclusive of all of our videos, not just our podcast videos. That's a spot usually reserved for videos that are at least 5 years old. So within 2 months, we were in the top 15. And as of today, we're over 1,100 views and kind of edging our way towards the top 10. Again, the top 10 is definitely a spot usually reserved for videos at least 5 years old. So with the amazing success of Part 1, we thought we'd get this dynamic trio back together for Part 2. So before we recorded today, we wanted to kind of reach out again as we did for Part 1 and ask folks what they'd like to learn about or hear about in our discussion today. So through a LinkedIn poll that was based on the options of the conversations during Clinical Trials Day on May 20th, we had a poll and asked folks to really kind of hear and learn from them what they'd like to talk about for us to talk about today. The top 2 things that kind of led the poll was leadership and networking. So with our awesome team we have today, I'd love to hear their perspectives on networking. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could introduce yourselves and kind of jump right into our first question, what advice would you give to new folks in the field that want to network meaningfully?
Absolutely. I'm happy to jump in and go first. So I'm Edie Edens, for anyone who doesn't know me. So I'm a senior attorney at the Kulkarni Law Firm, well into my second decade of legal and life sciences practice exclusively in this area. Love, love, love being with this wonderful group of people. Thank you for having me. Again, thrilled that our first episode was so popular and happy to be back for a second. What I would say about networking that's very interesting to me and maybe slightly different or varied from others' experiences is when you go to any type of legal education, whether you're paralegal, whether you're a master's in legal affairs, or you're actually outright going to law school, at least and I'll date myself, the time at which I was going, it is impressed upon you very early that as every bit as important as the academics that you're studying and the laws that you're going to have to understand how to analyze is also the who know. The how know matters. Don't get me wrong. It better be there. But the who know matters just as much. And so I will say that while I personally, for those who know me outside of my career world, I'm a very big introvert. I'm not the type of person who wants to go to every single happy hour, be seen, be, middle of the attention. In the legal environment, we had a really good opportunity. And I just don't know if other educational programs create these opportunities. I sure hope they do, where it was almost like the networking sessions were brought to you as a student. And the teachers, the professors, the older students were a little bit holding your hand. Like, I mean, you still had to be an adult. You're a grad student. But it was like, look, be here, be square. This is how it's done. Yes, it's a room full of people you don't know. Yeah, it's kind of nerve-wracking. Yes, it feels a little, lacking in authenticity at first. You're walking up and introducing yourself to strangers. But to be fair, this is how network connections are made. And every person in that room who's an accomplished attorney that makes you a little nervous when you're in the student role to walk up to was in your role one day too, right? Which is why they're here in this room, because they had to do this too. And they're going to be nice. They're going to be. And so we had an environment that was set up that way. Now, I know digitally, obviously, post 2020, there's been a lot of changes and we can talk about that. But that was where I started, at least in my career, learning the value, handing out the business card, being seen, making the connections, having the conversations. And to be fair, they weren't always wins. I'm not suggesting every time I tried to strike up a conversation with someone, even now, even 20 years in, sometimes it's just you strike up a conversation with someone at the networking opportunity and they go, hi. And you go, oh, so what do you do? I'm a lawyer. What are you practicing? Law. Okay. Great. Well, it is so nice to meet you. And then you just politely are going to move on to the next person because it's just not always a fit. It doesn't always work. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It's a numbers game. But like I said, they at least created this environment for us academically where it was like, you got to do this. And here, we're going to bring it to you. What were your experiences, Erin, Casey, Michelle?
So let me, if you wouldn't mind, I will go next. I'm Erin Knight. I am the Associate Vice President at Memorial Hermann Health System in Houston, Texas, in the Texas Medical Center. I also am the SOCR Chapter Chair for Houston and Galveston as well. But this is a great question because I feel like clinical research, I think we've all dated ourselves a little bit in the first part of the podcast, part one. So let's just go ahead and continue dating ourselves. So I think when I started in this field 20 million years ago, that it was very kind of grassroots. And so if you wanted to meet someone or get education, you had to extend yourself out there and just be like, are you in research too? How do you do this? Because there was not all the things that we have now. There was not all of these, Zoom, continuing education podcasts, recordings, being able to hear from the SMEs in the field. You didn't have those. So you had to go out there and kind of pound the pavement to meet those people so you could also continue to learn as well. Like, that's why back in the day, didn't we all kind of love besides Edie, didn't we all kind of love our monitors back in the day where we could like befriend them and they could like introduce? Those were like our first people we could meet. We became friends with them. We went to happy hours with them. They would introduce us to other people. Networking now is a lot easier, but I still think you have to put in the effort and in the work and the networking, and don't be lazy about the networking because it's not going to just come to you. And be mindful of what you're doing when you're in those networking situations, because again, I think, we're the four of us here are all very experienced and been in this field. While we're all open to networking, we're also like paying attention to what you're doing in that networking moment as well. I will just say one thing that always gets me is I have a unique way of spelling my name. And if someone sends me an email, like a cold call email on LinkedIn or something like that, and if you've misspelled my name, I may not respond back to you, because that's the simplest thing you could do first is be respectful and make sure you spell someone's name appropriately, or, refer to them as a doctor if they're a doctor, or this or that and the other. So again, although we have these things at our fingertips, we need to make sure we're mindful with it. Casey, what do you think?
Yeah, I echo both of those, and thank you for sharing. I'm Casey Jackson. I am the Director of Research, Quality Improvement, and Compliance for the University of Maryland School of Nursing. And I also am an elected director of the SOCR National Board. And just like Erin, I support my local chapter. I am the Baltimore chapter chair. I wear, I think, 20 other hats too, but I won't get into that right now. As far as networking is concerned, it's so interesting to me, because when I think of networking, and maybe this is because of the nature of who I am, because I have an insatiable curiosity, and because my career path within the medical research, clinical research field has been so diverse, I always come to the table with networking with curiosity is the first thing. Because like Edie said, not everybody you're going to connect with. So the first thing you're going to connect on is that respect as another human being. I'm curious about you as another human being. Hi, I'm Casey. Nice to meet you. What are you into? And then, if you find that you have mutual kind of career aspirations, or if there's something that the two of you can support one another in and glean from one another, then you can continue that on in that way. But that, I think, we're getting savvier as far as being able to suss out who has, who is a taker, right? And who is wants to actually have build that relationship. And I think knowing that, coming to the table with that curiosity first, I see you as a human being first. And that way, if the career things don't align, oh, great. Also, hi, see you at the grocery store. We've met before. And can just continue on, and it doesn't have to be weird or awkward.
That's where I think comes the authenticity. Like, I find this very interesting. About a year ago, I gave up my faculty position at the IU McKinney School of Law, where I'd been for, 15 years in a variety of capacities. But it was really, really interesting to see the younger generations of future practitioners come through and learn, like, how is networking different for them, or see them during a 2020 and 21 period of time where all of those in-person events came to a grinding halt, and they went, how do I get a job? All you've told me for years is I have to network. Now I have nowhere to network. And I went, well, there's this thing called LinkedIn. That there's digital networking, right? And so you're dealing with a different methodology and avenue to get to the people, to connect to the people. But at the same time, we're almost demanding a greater authenticity than we used to when we did it, right? And what I see with the students, at least the younger generations, I think that the more confident you are, the further along in your career, you're going to sort of have a way you approach people. You're going to learn that if somebody doesn't reply to a LinkedIn inquiry or isn't the right fit at a networking event, not to take it so personally. It probably really isn't. And so, you get a little bit calmer, you have your way of doing things. But what I find about the students that are closer to that early stage is, one, they really do want to be authentic. They don't necessarily know what that means or what it looks like to be on the opposite side. So, like I always say to them, on the one hand, if you're monologuing while you're networking, if your first post to me on LinkedIn is 3 pages long and says I need a job, that's overkill. It's a little too much authenticity. We haven't even met. We haven't even connected as humans yet. So, like, hold on, cart before the horse. I think, everyone on LinkedIn is looking for something. You don't really have to go out of your way to say that. Everyone in a networking happy hour, especially at a law school or a law firm, knows why we're there. So you don't have to be shy that you're looking for opportunities, but it does need to be authentic. You really do need to ask questions that you actually are listening to the answer, and you're asking the appropriate follow-up question because you really are trying to learn, what is it that Erin does? What is it that Casey does? Wow, I've never done anything like that. Could I ask you some more questions? The other side of the coin is you also don't want to start too early on as far as meeting another individual. So, like, if you're on LinkedIn and you send me a message and it says, hello, I'm probably not going to reply. I get about 400 messages a day. I need you to say, like, hi, I'm Erin. I was sent to you by this person. I'm coming to you because I'm looking for these things. Would you possibly have some time for me? Would you possibly have an answer for me? Then I'm much more likely to get back to you. It was short. It was succinct. You were genuine. You were polite. You were professional. You spelled my name correctly. You did all the appropriate professional steps, but you also didn't spend 3 pages telling me you needed a job without ever, like, asking what I do for a living. Because that's always my favorite. People love to come to me since I'm at a firm now and say, like, are you hiring? And I'm like, I'm the second lawyer that's ever been hired at this firm in 20 years. So no, we're probably not going to be hiring anytime soon. We're very small. Also, right out of law school, I'm sorry, but there's no way you have the expertise to be at this firm. Not yet. You might, but not yet. And so, like, understanding and targeting the right people. Don't blanket approach. Don't go up to everyone at the networking event. Don't spam everyone in your network on LinkedIn. That is not, like Erin said, that's not intentional. That's not mindful. That's truly just spamming. That's not putting in the work and the effort. And again, to be fair, I think some of the folks who are just getting into our industry, just, coming out of school, you don't know any better. You're not doing it to be sleazy. But someone's got to tell you and redirect you. And this is where you can learn a lot from paying attention to the companies that are out there doing social media marketing. They're sharing tons of information. And if you will look, you'll find in your particular area of the clinical trial ecosystem, trust me, there's at least one company, if not 15, doing some level of marketing in that space. Follow them. Look at how they're presenting and connecting to their community. Look at how they add value. Obviously, right now, we're very social media centric in how we network. I think almost all of us met on social media at some point, and that's how we've connected. So that's great. But again, like if you look at the posts, it's not about getting the views. It's not about getting the dopamine hits. It's, are you contributing to your community? Are you connecting in meaningful ways? Are you furthering other people's posts and other people's business objectives along with your own? Are you showing that you really support the whole ecosystem? And also, it's a numbers game. I'm not trying to oversimplify or make it an algorithm, but there is something to be said for the fact that every social media platform does have an algorithm. And you have to plant a lot of seeds to be able to harvest a lot of opportunities. And so, like I said, just because one seed doesn't pop up the first time, that doesn't mean you shouldn't plant it. That shouldn't mean you shouldn't plant 10 more. I don't know. What do you guys see, Erin, Casey, as we go into digital and we teach, individuals?
Nor should you give up, too.
No.
Like, I think that's a tough thing, especially for younger folks that are really trying to get their foot in the door and they don't yet have a ton of expertise under their belt. They don't know a lot of people. And it can be discouraging not catching any bites. And so, don't give up. And I love how you talked about the preparedness piece. Come prepared. That's the most respectful thing that you can do when you're reaching out to someone. Do your research on them. Know your intention for contacting them.
Right.
And
narrow your pool. Like
yeah.
At this point in my career, at this point in my firm, if I go on LinkedIn to connect to new people that I genuinely haven't met at a conference, I'm genuinely connecting because I'm trying to build new people, I'm going to be very intentional. I have a very certain audience who, let's be honest, requires my services. It is a business model. It's okay to be out there selling yourself. Everyone is doing it on some level. There's no shame in that. Even hospitals make money. And two, I want to make sure they're individuals who want to hear from me, who I can add value to whatever it is that they're doing. So I'm going to narrow it down to, the level of decision maker you are, the type of organization that you're at, the role that you hold in your organization. Those are going to change over time. They'll change over 6 months, right? But that's where that mindfulness, and to be fair, the tools exist. There's tons of ways to go out there and sort of target your audience. I feel like when we're first coming out of school, we always want to be generalists in everything. We want to be seen everywhere at every event, but that's not, you can't maintain that over time. And also you're going to specialize. You're going to work at a site. You're going to work at a sponsor. You're going to be an administrator. You're going to be a site director. Like, you're going to have areas that you really want to work in. And so you're going to need to cultivate a community of those people, but you also have to keep reaching outside of your comfort zone to keep building the network that's going to give you the full coverage of what you need. So you always have someone to call. Mm-hmm. Now, Erin, I know you got stuff to say there.
I do.
Here, I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah. So, I think LinkedIn obviously is, one of the greatest places. And I will say the research community is very open and we encourage networking, as you're hearing here today. It is strongly encouraged to network. You will find those people that, like Edie had stated, that you don't connect with, but just politely excuse yourself and go another way. Because in this field, I said this to my daughter yesterday, just in life in general, don't burn bridges. Don't do that, because this field is so small that I probably have heard from everyone on this and said, hey, do you know this person? And I could say, yes, I do. Because even though we all live in completely different areas in the U.S., this research is small. We all somehow get connected to each other and we know the same people and we know how this works and I know how this institution, and if I don't, I know who I can call to get that information. I think that's really, really important. I also think when it comes to networking, you can start small. If you don't know LinkedIn, you can go to some of the, just Google clinical research organizations. And you can see there's ACRP, there's SOCRA, there's clinical research sites, Society of Clinical Research Sites. There's other ones out there too. And if you just go and navigate through their website, you will see my name as a chapter chair for Houston. If you're in Texas, reach out to me. You'll see Casey's name. First, do a little bit of research on Google who you're about to reach out to so you can relate back to them. Oh, wow, I've seen that you've accomplished quite a few, or, Casey, wow, you do this, or Edie, you're an attorney and specialize in clinical research. That's amazing. Are there a lot of people like you out there? So you got to have that way to cue us in. But the thing is that once we connect, I know, at least for myself, I'm always to be like, let's do a 30-minute Zoom so I can just find out about you. Like, what are you interested? What are you trying to do? Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions in our field too on like, oh, I want to do this. And you tell me that. And I'm like, no, actually you're wanting to do this, not this. That role is not aligned with what you're trying to do. Because there's more to research than just what we call research monitors or clinical research associates, which I think is what most people think of when they first think of research. But you can't just jump into that. You have to do other things before, like Edie said, like you have to have areas of expertise. You have to put in the time. This is one of those things that you've got to work a ladder here. This is not just because you got a master's in this or a PhD in this or you're foreignly medical trained or this, that, and the other. Doesn't mean you're going to go straight to where, I'm sitting or where Edie's sitting, Michelle, Casey. No, this is a field that you have to put in the work to get the accolades to keep moving up. And a big part of that is networking. So it's networking.
The networking can be cross-functional too. I mean, like
Absolutely.
I started out in a major academic medical center where there were only a small group of us who did what I did. And of that group, there's even a smaller group of us that were actually attorneys. So we felt very isolated despite being one of, 50,000 employees. Yet if we got out of our silo, if we left our office, if we left our building, right, if we went out into the wild, suddenly it was like, okay, there are semblances of what we're doing in each department. They're just siloed. And then we found, and this was, again, dating ourselves, but before SOCR and ACRP were in quite as much, well-respected space and as well-developed as some of the other organizations. And so, I do remember going early on, having lawyers say to me, oh, you should go to the American Health Lawyers Association meeting. You should go to this session. And I went, and there was a lot of really smart attorneys, and they were very nice to me, and not a single one of them did what I did, and I didn't do what they did. And it was like, well, I'm not sure this is helpful, right? And so I started going out instead in the academic medical center community, knowing I might not be rubbing elbows with other attorneys, but that's okay. I'm talking to people who are doing what I'm doing, but they're doing it from a different perspective, as a different type of stakeholder, and genuinely sat down and said, like, explain to me, one, what it is you do. Why is it different than what I think it is? Two, explain to me, since you're on the receiving end of what I do, right? That's how we know each other. What am I doing wrong? And I don't mean personally, I mean like from an industry perspective. So I was coming in at the grants and contracts, IRB, HRPP level initially. So those folks who are at the departments doing the research in the School of Medicine were receiving our services. And so it was also a chance for me to go, what don't we understand? What pain point aren't we fixing? So that they understood, like, I wasn't just there to learn selfishly for myself and my own career. I was also there to learn what could we do better? Because let's face it, if I go back to the IRB or the HRPP, even only a year or two into my job, and I go, well, I was doing some networking and I spoke to the chair of such and such department, and they said they would really be pleased if we reconsidered how we, reviewed their approvals and did it like this. What do we think about that? Even if you don't move forward on that idea, the fact that you're showing that level of initiative, the fact that the department chair of such and such now knows your name and will call you, I assure you, now that you've made a connection at the IRB. Let me tell you, 20 years later, I still talk to those physicians, even though I left that medical center 10 years ago. I still call them. They call me to support their studies. I call them, frankly, when a family member might need their care. I've created a really genuine relationship because of that. And because my reason for creating it was genuine, right?
And I think to interrupt you.
Please go, interrupt.
I want to really emphasize, because you hit upon an important piece there, and that's initiative, right?
Yeah.
So the networking piece is just part of that initiative. And it shows that you have the guts to take that initiative and to successfully network, taking the initiative to do the homework. And I'll say this much: we learn a lot about like what not to do, and so something, in my opinion, to do when networking is come to your contact with a very clear intention and an agenda. That shows that you respect their time. You know what your ask is. You're clear. I love it when I receive a call from someone that says, "Hi, I'm a junior in this field. I'm just looking to branch out into other fields. Might you have 15 minutes of time to talk to me about what you do and a bit about your journey?" And I've gotten on those calls, and that legit was the intention. There was no ulterior motive, no like, oh, I got my foot in the door, now I'm going to ask her these other questions. It was thank you for your time. And now I've gained respect for that person, and I know who that person is because they took that initiative.
And the timepiece. Someone said this to me. I don't know if you guys follow Erin Albert. So she's a pharmacist who's also an attorney, because apparently that's my wheelhouse, is that I hang out with those folks. But she happens to be local here in Indy, where I'm located. So we know each other 8 ways from Sunday from a variety of reasons, personal and professional. And she always makes this point when she's mentoring younger individuals in the industry. And she's very smart to make it. You can be a billionaire. You can always make more money. You can always get more initials after your name. You can get more accolades. You can get a better job. You can't buy more time. There's a solid 24 hours in the day, and that is it. So when you are 5 minutes late, when you blow over a 15-minute meeting by 20 minutes without acknowledging and asking if that's okay for the other person, right? When someone says to you, hey, I'm enjoying this conversation, but I do have a hard stop, I have to move on, and you don't respect that, that's a problem. You're sending a signal that you don't have time management skills. I'm not suggesting, especially in this lovely chatty group, that we don't all have to think about this, myself included. Erin knows this about me. But again, that's where going in mindful and intentional. I'm watching the clock. I'm paying attention to the meeting. I'm prepared, right? Even if it's a virtual meeting. Like I remember when we were first really starting to get into virtual work, I remember people were talking about, you should probably still put on a suit, still go in the bathroom and put on that makeup or freshen up, whatever's going to make you feel like you're really seeing the person in person, and even give yourself a little bit of the jitters on purpose, because it needs to be real. It needs to be like this person is face to face with you, you're shaking hands, because that's the one risk you run with digital networking. It's tons easier. You can get out to the entire world as one person so much faster, which frankly, I'm jealous of. The new generations jump all over that. We had to literally go physically in person to all the networking events. So use this to your advantage. Oh my gosh, use this to your advantage. But you got to do it. You can't show up in your jammies looking like you just rolled out of bed at the Zoom. You got to actually think about how you're going to present, what you're going to say, that you're going to watch time. Are you taking notes? Are you interrupting? Like all those types of things, you got to take it that seriously. And I also think the other part of it for the digital piece that I tell folks today is this is also a super, super great environment to just dip your toe in the water. If you're not an extrovert, if you're not comfortable, okay, so let's take the advice that these wonderful folks have given us today, having intention, knowing your purpose, isolating who your audience is, and doing outreach, doing homework, Googling, finding the right societies and organizations. Maybe you're not ready to reach out to a person and ask for a meeting yet. Okay, that's what following is for. That's what liking posts is for. That's what beginning to follow different feeds and starting to ask if you can join certain groups is for. You haven't actually had to say anything or post anything yet. And yet you're beginning to construct the feed of what information will you receive? What communities do you want to hear about? What societies do you want to know what they're doing and get, hear about their events? What individuals do you want to see on your feed? And do you want to be seen on their feed, right? As the person who's liking or joining or coming to an event. You can be pretty frankly, rubbing into the wallpaper and still actually have a bit of a presence for a while. If that's what you need to warm up, that's fine. The other part of it is still you send a message and someone doesn't send it back. Let me tell you, that is a whole heck of a lot less awkward than the networking example I gave earlier, right? Where you're literally standing face to face and you're like, oh, we're going to just stare at each other. This isn't awkward at all. Okie dokie. Oh, look, my friend over there. So nice to meet you. I'm going to head that way. Thank you. Have a great rest of your conference. I mean, what else do you do? You got to get out of that situation. Online, if someone doesn't reply, I mean, yes, I understand that might be hard at first. Trust me, couple years in, couple rounds in, you'll be like, I don't even remember sending that message. I'm not upset that they didn't message me back. It's okay. Everybody's busy. It's not personal.
Yeah, it's not personal.
Right. And in person, I think it feels personal. There's like no way for it to not feel personal in person. But I think that's where digital's actually kind of good for folks who are just starting out. Like, don't you, Erin, Casey, Michelle, don't you guys wish you'd had a little bit easier way to just sort of dip your toe in the water as opposed to being like, I'm going to jump in the deep end? I don't know. I would have done much better with that.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I remember back in the day, again, dating myself, that when I was interested, because again, the networking wasn't available, when I was interested in trying to find a new job, what I did is I took the areas that I was interested in. When I first got into the field, I was very much into substance abuse research. And so I would Google substance abuse research and read the research articles that had been posted from other people and in their work. And then I researched the authors around that. Yeah, I researched the authors around that. Then I saw where they were. Then I tried to find, in our dial-up internet time, where an email address or phone number or contact, and then I would reach out to them that way. And it said, I've seen your article. I've looked at your work. I'm very interested. I want to get into this field. Da 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 da. And that's how, like, back in the day that I did it. And so again, I still think, like, if you're going to an interview, if you're meeting, if Edie, Casey, or I or Michelle says, hey, yeah, let's have a meeting, research who we are. Find out our background. Have we published before? What are the areas we've looked at? Look at our LinkedIn. The first thing I do for anyone in our network is look for a LinkedIn. The first thing. And I kind of am like, oh, well, they don't have a LinkedIn. Why don't they have a LinkedIn? That's weird. Especially for people in our field, because everyone does. Because we also know the power of networking. And so, make sure that you have these ways that people can find you to then make yourself accessible for, oh yeah, I talked to this person or they reached out to me. I don't have a position, but I think they might be good for this other position I just heard about. Let me see if I can get a hold of them, get their CV or something, because we're always people coming to us and say, hey, I'm ready to get into this. What do I do? Or I'm looking for another job, or I want to advance. And I'll just be like, well, you need more time, or you need this, or you need that. But I'm like, I have a lot of connections. And I tell people I have some good connections. And so if you're looking for something or you find something you're interested in, send me the post, especially, if you're in Houston, send me the job post and let me see. Do I know background about this position? Do I know who's hiring for this position? Do I know this person? Do I know this team? Do I know, because again, I think we all in this field want to pay it forward. That's a big thing. We all genuinely want to help, all of us. That's why when Edie's like, don't take it personal, because deep down, every single one of us, I don't think it would be where we are today if we did not have that person or several people in our tribe helping us to get there. Like I keep saying I need to do a presentation on this. Her name is Linda. I love Linda, but Linda, I heard her speak at Baylor College of Medicine way back in the day, many, many, many years ago. And I just went up to her after the presentation. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was a thing. Da, 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 da. And she just took me under her wing. And she's the one that introduced me to Sogra. She introduced me to this, that, and the other. And she just really I didn't have to say, can you mentor me? Because again, sometimes when you reach out and say, can you be my mentor? And I'm like, one, I don't know you. And two, I don't have the time to mentor, but I'm happy to answer any questions along the way or, give you guidance or things like that. It's just a matter of how do you approach? What do you say? Don't ask for too much all in the first time that you meet someone, be respectful, send thank yous, send, all of those things that I think sometimes we don't remember in this day and age.
Do you all ever liken this to dating? And I say this having been married for a long time. I'm not suggesting I'm out on Tinder swiping left and right and I have any idea what that looks and feels like. But I do find that there's these moments where if I thought about it like a first date, like how nervous I would be, how much I would be checking how I looked, did I dress appropriately? What do I want to talk about? What is off limits for the first date? Like we bring a lot of context into a situation like that we just dismiss professionally because it's like, oh, that's personal, that's different. No, it's not really. Like what you decide to talk about, how much you talk about yourself versus how much you inquire about the other person, how genuine you are versus how much you're putting on airs, how much effort you put into making it a good first meeting on neutral ground. How much time is an appropriate amount of time to spend together when you're first meeting versus a little too much, like we've met, we've talked. Like those are all really, frankly, very similar EQ principles to the beginnings of networking, right? And I feel like dating is something that most of us, by the point we're looking for a career, have done on some level, right? Even if it's been tumultuous. And yet we're not bringing that learned experience into this other setting that's very, very much applicable, right? Like you would not roll out of bed for that first date with that person you've been trying to get that date with for 6 months. Absolutely not. You're not going to make sure your teeth are going to be brushed. You're not rolling out in your jammy panties. Like, no. And so like, why can't we apply some of that in this situation? And not to create like a scary environment, but rather to go, look, you already are doing this in other facets of your life. You really are. You really are. And what you're learning there can be applied here. And what you learn here can be applied there. Because most of us, unless you're just outright dissociative, are going to be somewhat similar at work as you are in your private life. You may have a little bit more type A at work, a little more type B at home like me, but you're not going to just totally be two versions of yourself, right? You're still you. And so if you find in one setting that people respond well when you behave a certain way, when you put forth certain intentions, chances are they'll probably respond well when you do it in the other setting. And I think that takes some of the onus when this is scary away from it being something I've never done before. Really? You've never made friends in middle school? You never made friends on a new sports team? You never went to a social function where you didn't know that many people and had to make some new friends? It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. And yes, I'm not trying to oversimplify that there's, a lot on the line, but also who you date and spend your life with has a whole heck of a lot to do with your happiness too. You put a lot of time and effort into that, don't you? Okay. Well, how's that any different than who you spend your work week with? And there's similar principles. Like if I'm looking at a job in TMC, sorry, Darshan, I'm not actually leaving the firm, but if I was, first person I'm going to call is Erin. And it's not just going to be, am I the right person for the job? Will you put in a good word for me? It's going to be, why'd the last person leave the job? What do you know about it? Is it a good place to work? What have you heard from individuals on the inside about this particular leadership? What are they trying to accomplish? Was the last person leaving on their own volition or did they get pushed out? Hey, I heard so-and-so and so-and-so left when the last person left. Why? Right? Like I'm asking all the relationship questions, right?
Absolutely.
That's what's in
good for job hunting. I wouldn't necessarily say networking. Sorry. Edie, I know aligned with the whole like dating and networking thing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so interested. Please tell me. I don't like echo chambers. You know that about me. So
because I'm trying to relate. I'm like, maybe it's just because the way. First of all, I haven't dated in so darn long. I forget what it's like. And
I hear it's still terrible, FYI.
When I was, it was, I don't know. I just took things, I just took things so lightly. I never really picky. So I didn't put too much stock in very first conversations and early.
Mm-hmm.
It was more just a curiosity. And keep that curiosity alive. And so maybe that too with like networking, like keep it curious, keep it casual. However, at the same time, I do understand there are circumstances where networking is the goal, the intention. And so I don't know, maybe I just go about life too, like not seriously.
No, I think
Kind of worked
no,
out for me. I don't know.
Dude,
I definitely see the relationship because the basis of it is being curious and being, presenting how you feel comfortable to present on the first time as well. And learning to give take in a conversation and listening to that and making sure you're asking the appropriate questions to the person. I mean, I can't tell you when people are just like, you know, hey, can tell me about you, Erin? And I'll be like, no, no, no. Why don't we start with you? Tell me about you. Tell me about yourself. And then I can see how I can relate to where I am in my professional field. And I can circle it back as that, oh, I heard you do this. I actually did this too. And this is how this worked out for me. So I really love the tell me about you, and then I'll tell you about me and how we can bond together through something. Or I can say, you can think about taking this aspect and changing it over into this aspect, or how they, so I see the mutual between you and Casey and Edie. I see it. It's just that it's expressed in different forms.
and I say it with you, Casey, because you're bringing curious, like Erin said, you're bringing curious both times. And also, I think that really highlights that's authentic to you. That's authentic to how you interact best and how you connect best, whether in a personal or professional setting. And so I actually think that's a perfect example, whether you align it with dating or not, truly. I think it's a perfect example of you know yourself well enough to know that first conversation out the gate is going to be more casual, but is going to be genuine curiosity, learning, wanting to exchange information, and then determining if there's more there, right?
Yeah.
I also think it can go the opposite way. Like, I know this far along in my career, when I do try to build my network, I just joined this particular law firm like 8 months ago. So you're supposed to bring in a client book, business develop. That's part of being a partner at a law firm. And so when I reach out, I get the opposite now, because I am reaching out to a VP. I am reaching out to someone at a higher decision-making level. They're like, yeah, so what do you want from me? And I'm like, I'm actually doing the thing where we're networking. We're just doing it digitally because I'm not at the conference that you're at this week. I don't want anything. And if you're busy, that's fine. You don't have to reply. You don't have to talk to me. It won't hurt my feelings. But also, here's my calendar. I'm around. People know how to find me if you'd ever like to chat. I just think what you're doing is interesting, and I wanted to have some open networking. And it's very interesting. About 20% of the people that I say open networking to are like, basically BS. You're selling something. And I'm like, well, okay, that's fine. You don't have to like me or accept my invitation or anything. But the 80% I talk to, we end up having a delightful conversation, because once they get on the phone with me and I don't sell them any services, and I'm like, no, I really just wanted to know what you were working on because of da-da-da-da, then they go, this is so nice. This is just like a genuine conversation. I'm like, yeah, that can happen on Zoom just like it can happen in person. You just have to create the space for it. And I think we're more inclined online to push back and go like, I'm not going to have a business meeting because someone's selling me something. But if you were at a conference, you totally show up at the 4:00 networking hour. Now, it might be because they have free drinks or free food, but you'd show up and you'd stand there and you'd talk to complete strangers, even if you thought they were selling you something, right? So there's a bit of the dynamic of like what the medium is as well. I don't know if that changes things for you, Casey, and how you would approach, or you, Erin. But I think it's a big piece of it.
Yeah. Michelle, I see you're off mute. Did you want to? I'm like, are you segueing?
She's reining us in.
Well, I don't have the power for that. No, y'all are amazing. So I did not want to stop, but I'm hearing the thread, and it's actually a perfect timing. Because you provided lots of valuable insight into the networking, but what I'm also hearing is your experiences, and as we've aged ourselves, length of experience, and how you mentor others. That's also coming through in this conversation. So I was wondering if you could delve into that a little bit more and talk about, I think Erin already talked about one of her mentors, but if you could talk about the mentors that you've had and how they've helped shape your path, because I can already hear it coming through in the conversation.
The concept of mentorship became clear to me when I realized the impact of servant leadership and what a leader truly is rather than a manager. And so once I kind of, not going to say I arrived, when I arrived in this space in my career, And I realized that there's a generation below me that eventually I'm going to have to pass the torch to. I want to pass this torch. I do not want to grip it to the grave. These folks are also going to be taking care of me when I'm older, or, be responsible for making new technological or medical advances. So, how do we effectively pass that torch? And that intersection of networking and leadership and mentorship. I really have no finer, I guess, example than my own mentor, and I feel like it was mentored by accident, and that is the past SOPR president, Jess Rao. She also happened to be my predecessor in my job, and if it weren't for me reaching out to her and saying, "Hey, I noticed that your job is open. Are you leaving the university? What's going on with you?" And her saying, "Oh my goodness, I totally forgot. Yeah, you would be great for this position. And that's right. You're over there and you're on campus, and I forgot you were a thing and you have these skills." And it was great. So that opened that door. And ever since then, we've been great buds. And she's given me fantastic, objective, and really good advice. And I've been able to accept her as a mentor in a very careful way as well, because there can be folks out there that don't exactly have the best intentions or don't guide you in the right way. My grandmother would say, you consider the source. So the person that you're coming to, know them. Know, this may not be the person that I go to when I really just need someone to complain to and tell me that I'm right. Or this may not be the person I go to for career advice, given their background and their reputation in the field. So, it takes for good mentorship. I think it takes you some work on your part to determine who would be an effective mentor for you, and then also on their part, knowing, are they do they value servant leadership, and would they be up to the task for that?
Yeah. I mean, I think what you hit on is so important to remember, is that there's not usually one stop shop for mentors. Like Linda, for me, she was my mentor on clinical research. How do I do things? Like, thank you for teaching me how to write an SOP, because now I am an SME on SOPs. This, that, and the other. But she was not my person that I went to said, how do I become a good manager, leader, director? That. What I did is I saw other people and I was like, oh my God, I love the way you do this. And I'm interested. How do you do that? Like, I wish I could do that. It's not something that comes natural for me. And so even just that. So, from a clinical research standpoint, I have these people that I look at as leaders and mentors. And from just a hospital business perspective, I have these people I look at as mentors and leaders. And from a clinical research day to day, I even have those split out. Like, from a reg point of view, I go to these people. From operations point of view, I like these people. So it could be multiple people, which goes back to in your network of people that can help you with navigating these things. But I think one of the biggest part of finding that good one cheerleader is that they are there to help you through thick or thin. You're not going to necessarily have all of those people in your network going to give you that type of support. I know Jess gives that to Casey. I know she has been a big cheerleader for you. Linda was a massive cheerleader for me when I was like, I can't do that, Linda. She's like, absolutely, you can sit on the SOCR National Board. 5 years before I got elected to it. She's like, you can write SOCR, CCRP questions. And I was like, no, I can't. She's like, yes, you can. And I was like, wow, she sees something in me that I don't see in me, but it's there. So I have to give this credit. She was sitting there in the background being a huge cheerleader for me with that, but it didn't come to me. It came to me because I heard her speak. I approached her after and said, oh my gosh. And then I followed up with her. I sent her a thank you email afterwards to take the time to have a conversation with me. I went to her and said, hey, I hate to bother you, but I have a question. What if this happened? And she was just like, well, I would be doing this, that, and the other. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. I wasn't sure how to go. And so then I just kept, and we just formed a bond, And so it's just, you have to put yourself out there to be able to be mindful of what you're asking them. You can't ask someone for everything, if they can't give you that. If they're strong leaders and say, hey, how did you go from just being a manager to being, the CEO of a company? How did you get there? How did you go from just being an attorney starting out to being a partner? Because it's what all attorneys want to get to, is being a partner. Like, how did you go do that? Like, I'm intimidated. It seems like it's difficult, this process. So again, this all intertwines together beautifully, Michelle, with the networking to the mentorship, because you'll find your person along the way. Like my last Stoker chapter meeting for Houston, I gave a presentation. I'm not sure which one, but I shouted out and I was like, if you want to learn how to publicly speak, or you want to develop a presentation, or you want to present with me, please reach out. Do you know how many people reached out? Like, if a speaker said that and I was on the call, I'd be reaching out. I got no reach outs, 0. And I was like, wow, okay, I know I'm not internally taking that at all, because I know it's not me. It's just people don't believe in themselves. People don't, I don't know what it is, but it's just, it's there. And I called it out. I literally was thinking the other day, I was like, wow, no one reached out to me, which is totally fine. I will utilize my time in other ways. But I was like, I would have totally been all over that. And it was Aaron 20 years ago. I've been like, hey, Edie, I heard your presentation on. Could we set up some time to talk? I really am interested. You speak so well. How did you get to that place? Right. Maybe if I wasn't even ready, but people do give you little nuances along the way. You just pick up the cues. They're not always as bold as what I did, but if you just pick up on the cues, people want to help. Again, this is the best field for paying it forward. A lot of us had to struggle to get to where we are, and we want to help the next generation not struggle to get to where they have to be. Like there's a better path now, if you just find, again, your tribe of people, because it's not just one person, it's a whole lot. Edie, what do you think about all this?
So I agree with everything you guys have said. I have a slightly different just experience personally. So most of the folks on this call know, but for anyone listening, so I grew up in a family full of clinicians and lawyers. Like we're just as weird as it gets. And I say that with a lot of love because I'm not mad. Like it got me where I am. But the idea of asking for a mentor is not something that was ever introduced. It was like, no, you go to school, you perform, you get high marks, you have to show the initiative, you have to approach the teacher after class, you have to go find the best student in the class and make friends and learn how to study with them and level up your game. The onus is on you. Now, to be fair, that's also because I happen to come from highly educated, affluent, very, initiative driven, successful folks. Not everyone is incredibly, gifted and privileged in that way. But it left me as a young, academic and practitioner not knowing to go ask for this, like not knowing that this was an option, which in a way is why when someone does come to me and go, will you be my mentor? I don't want to go, don't ask me that, right? Because I don't want to put it off. I didn't know to ask. I was too dumb. I was too bullheaded. What I was good at, and what I tell folks who might have a similar situation or similar personality of my own, is where mentors came in for me is, and again, not shocking, but I didn't ever really lack a lot of confidence. I didn't really have trouble speaking up or getting myself to the front of the room if I really wanted to be there. My issue was I didn't always listen. truly, because I was so driven, because I was so narrow focused, because I was so type A. And to be fair, that had gotten me a lot of places. So if it works, you keep doing it, you double down on it. So the first time I had someone that I was working with who I really respected, who I'm like, okay, I'm doing everything the person's telling me to do. They're telling me I'm doing it really well. I'm thinking this is going well. And they went, hey, can we talk? And I was like, oh, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's it. That's not good. That's not good. They don't, and they were like, can we go to Starbucks and have a chat? I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting fired. I'm getting fired. And I'm racking my brain. What am I doing wrong? What didn't I do? What email didn't I send? Did I write the IRB meeting minutes wrong? Because again, I'm very transactional and I was raised in a very transactional environment. And it was the greatest moment because the person was like, so here's the thing. You're flipping amazing. You have a career ahead of you that I can't even imagine. I just want to be along for the ride. And I was like, oh, maybe this isn't bad. And they're like, but we need to talk about your approach. It has nothing to do with the quality of your work or the fact that you will always be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. You'll always get the job done and everything. You're so focused, you're kind of not friendly at work. Like you're kind of not the easiest person to get along with. And I know you outside of work. I've socialized with you enough to think, I don't really think you're a jerk. I think you have no idea that this is your work persona. And I was like, oh, I'm a jerk at work. And they were like, yeah, but I don't think you mean to be, which is why I'm going to just sort of impose and be your mentor here. Okay. Because I want to see you succeed. You're already reporting to me. We have a good rapport. I want to keep promoting you, but also I need you to learn how the politics work. You're in a major academic medical center. You cannot just speak your mind in every room. Unfortunately, that is not how that works. And you might be burning bridges you didn't even know you were on a bridge to begin with. So like, I want to help you from that perspective because that's where you need mentoring. You don't need someone to tell you to show up. You don't need someone to tell you to make the A in the class. Like you're doing all those things. That's great. And so for me, it was more about being willing to accept mentorship and to understand and respect that this person was taking time out of their busy schedule to help me get better when I didn't even ask for the help, let alone if I had turned the help away, I would never have gotten it again. And it was like this moment where I didn't hear everything I wanted to hear. I didn't get student of the year. I didn't get employee of the week like I normally did. But I got somebody who gave a darn. And it was very clear to me they genuinely cared. And it was like, okay, I can't lie. This was a little hard to hear. On the other hand, I think you're telling me this because you actually really want me to succeed. So could I go home and think about this and then maybe come talk to you about it in a few days? And they were like, yeah, that'd be great. And then I did. And I ended up reporting to that particular person for many, many years while I was at that organization. And it's just one example of many. But when I look back now, I see, professors in college, professors in grad school, practitioners, people I worked for all throughout the years who were basically showing up as my mentor without me asking.
Yeah.
And the one good thing I knew to do was I had that trust. I had that respect. See it as they're trying to help you. No one's holding you back. This is not a conspiracy. This is not some, woman on woman hate in the workplace. And don't get me wrong, all that does exist. You do have to beware. But the vast majority of the time when someone's sitting you down and going, hey, you're amazing, but you could be even better. And here's how you could get there. Would you want to talk about that? That's someone offering to mentor you. That's about as good as it gets. And if you look at that person's career and you go, man, I could totally be that person when I grow up, then sit down, buckle up and listen. And again, it's okay to say this is hard to hear. But once I established the relationship with the mentors that then when I asked, like when they came to me and said, hey, this wasn't quite how I wanted you to land the plane. Do you know why? I would go, well, I think I faltered here, here, and here, but tell me what I didn't think of. They knew I wasn't being combative. I was in. I saw them as a mentor. I knew if they were bringing something to the plate, they just wanted me to perform at my best. It was like an athlete who doesn't want to win the finals. So if the coach is coming in and saying, you're doing great, but if you practice here, you'd make more shots. Listen, because those are the folks that really want to see you grow. And they want to, like we were talking about, those are the folks we want to pass the baton on to. Like, I don't want to be 65 worried about the next generation in the clinical trial ecosystem. I want to be 65 retired going, man, they're doing things I never even thought about doing. I can't wait to see what the next innovation is, right? And so if you are in that situation where either you're too nervous to ask for a mentor or you're just too stubborn and bullheaded, fair enough, just make sure you're listening because they will present themselves. It's like what Erin's talking about. You will go to that one talk where someone just really resonates with you. That's your moment. That's your moment where you walk up and go, could I get your information? I don't know that I have a question today, but I think I will soon. Or like I said, when someone does pull you aside and says, hey, this is meant to help, not hurt, but I do need to talk to you about how we could do this a little better next time. Try taking a really positive approach. Instead of feeling bad, instead of taking it as a criticism, go, can I ask you a few more questions? So you said I did this instead of this. Could you give me a better example of what you would have liked to have seen? Because that's where you're going to get the real meat. That's where you're going to go, oh, you wanted me to present it like this and tell this story. Got it. I didn't even realize. It's also where you'll start creating situations where you can check yourself. So if this mentor happens to be someone that you work with regularly or that you can interact with and you have the right relationship, the other beauty of this is then you can go, hey, I'm about to publish something. I'm about to do something. I'm about to make a big decision. I think I'd like your eyes on it before I let it go live. Would you have 5 minutes? Because I really value your opinion. If you tell me it's too loud, if you tell me it's too much, I'm going to draw it back in. If you tell me it's not loud enough, I'm going to do something about that. Because that's the other thing. The mentors are going to check you too. And you want that. That's a blessing, not a curse, especially once you've established that relationship. Because then you're going from networking to get to job 1, elevating yourself and mentoring into job 2, 5, 7, however much, to truly becoming an advisor and an expert in your chosen space in the field, because you're continuing to level up. And also, people want to work with people who can take constructive criticism. If every time I say to a peer, an employee, or even a boss, I think we could maybe do that a little better, and they go, what are you talking about? I am great at what I do. Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to give you advice anymore because you think you're perfect the way you are. And I'm not going to fight. I don't have that kind of time and energy, right? But if I go, hey, I liked what you did, but have you ever thought about doing it this way? And the person goes, whoa, I didn't think about that. Tell me more about what you were thinking. Then I'm more likely to go to that person and give them quality feedback. And if you think it doesn't happen, I literally have at least a meeting a day with Darshan where we do this to each other. We've both been in the industry for 20 years. We're both licensed attorneys. We've had so much respect for each other, even before working together. And the amount of times we call each other out or even call ourselves out in front of the other daily, absolutely daily. And it's a wonderful way to work. I mean, the fact that we can be in a discussion and he can go, you know what? I think I was wrong. I should not have pushed that hard. Or I can go, you know what? You called me out about this the other day and you were right. I should have worked harder on that. I'm sorry. I can do better. That's how you're going to build a really quality organization. And that's how you're going to build the most value for the folks you work for. And
mentorship too, right? Like
yes. you even peer to peer like that.
Yeah. You know that if it's safe for you to be vulnerable. If you know that their intention is to help you grow, not advance themselves, but to help you grow, right, and to allow you to be safe in your vulnerability, that's a good quality network person, a good quality mentor right there. You want to hold on to that.
They also might have your back too. Like there's times where I'm like, you know what? I have too much going on maybe outside of work to make this my priority, but I know it's really important for our organization. And I'm worried I'm not going to give it the attention it deserves. Casey, could you help me with that? Or, man, it seems like you care about this and you're very specific about this particular topic in a way that maybe I just don't have as much curiosity or interest. Would you want to be a little more forward on this project? Because I want this to be a great project. I want the deliverable to be perfect for, the client, the patient, et cetera. And I don't know that I'm going to give it what it needs, but I think you are, right? And so that's the other part of it, is creating an environment where you're always getting the best in product. And that's what you want. It doesn't always have to be your face doing it, right? And sometimes that's where the team is the best part. And we're having
confidence.
Yes, absolutely. Even when you don't have it in yourself, or even when you go, I don't think this is up to snuff, right? Having that other person look at it, running it by them. That's where I think, like I said, I love that Erin pointed out there's mentors. I think you did too, Casey. There's mentors for a little bit of everything. You're probably not going to have one mentor who's your everything, right? You're going to have mentors in different spaces that you look to, and you're going to know what you ask them about or what you seek them out about versus what you don't. I definitely have folks who I go like, I'm going to talk to them about this sliver of the industry, but maybe not this. That's just not what they do. It's not where they're most respected. It's not their greatest talent. But this right here sure is.
Something I want to bring up, if you don't mind, and I want to tack on to something Erin said earlier, and that was about the paying it forward. Because I noticed that once you start opening yourself up to mentorship and taking constructive criticism, not taking it personally, and really seeing the value in that, this person didn't need to take their time to share that with you, but they did. So I respect them for doing so. That was not easy, but the more comfortable you get with receiving that, the more comfortable you are with providing it. And you're able to pay it forward and in turn kind of become a mentor yourself. And it's such a beautiful feeling to be able to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I see you.
And also, isn't it a wonderful turning moment in your career when you realize you've become a mentor? Like, I remember the first time somebody not outright asked me, but was like, I'm very interested in how you got to where you got in your career. And I'm like, I'm sorry, are you talking to me? Like, what? Like me right here? Yeah, no. Do you know how many wrong turns I made? Do you know how many hiccups I've had? And they're like, no, like, you have no idea. I want to be you when I grow up. And I'm like, what? Have you lost your mind? You know, you don't. But it was that like you said, that first moment where you realize I'm not just the mentee anymore. I have something to offer now. And it's a compliment. It's also a responsibility. It's part of, like you said, paying it forward. And to be fair, selfishly, people say pay it forward. And I do genuinely pay it forward and believe in that concept. But I will say, one of the first things I noticed early in this industry before I would ever been at a point to say pay it forward was, even though I'd done all this flipping school and I'd done all these internships and I'd worked all these places, my first job, I didn't know squat. I still had to learn so much on the job. And then 7 years in, I switched from being on the HRPP side to the site side. And guess what? I had to do it all over again like I was a noob. And so there's a part of it that's also about, look, we need more quality folks in this industry. One of the hardest reasons that it's hard for you out there to break into our industry is because when we interview you and go, oh, you have site experience? Well, tell me what you know about oncology. And you go, I had a family member who died of cancer. And you go, that's not a site experience, right? It's extremely hard to find folks who have experience, real boots on the ground in the trenches experience, whether that's at the sponsor level, the CRO level, the site level, all the different levels. If we can get more individuals during your education to intern with us, to learn about us, to pursue programs that empower us to teach you more before you're on the job the first day, before you're interviewing for the first time, it actually enhances our workforce. It creates less time that we have to spend training you up on day one and more time that we can spend elevating you to the next phase of your career. So the pay it forward is a wonderful concept. And 100%, I think once you're in the industry, how you feel about it. But in the beginning, it's very much about, wow, how do we have this few people who know what they're doing on day one? How do I have this many people in the office who I know are really smart and got all these degrees and did all this education, but they'd never heard of an IRB before? They didn't know what working for a sponsor would look like. They didn't know what monitoring was. They didn't know what coordinating a study was like. How on earth are we doing this wrong that we're not creating those opportunities so that we can be mentoring at a younger stage of the career, right? That we can be bringing you in to these opportunities in this ecosystem at an even earlier stage to even know it exists, to be hungry for it, to be seeking it.
Yeah, exactly. And mentoring early. My first year on the board, Erin, I was her little fledgling gosling, following her around. But she piped up. She saw some promise in me, and she had already been in and said, oh, I'm taking Casey under my wing. And Erin, I can't tell you just how wonderful that was for me, because it's all that vote of confidence, though, and the fact that was in place too. That way, I wasn't swimming around lost. It provided a compass. Mentorship definitely provides a compass.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Casey. I appreciate that. I think the whole education piece could be a whole nother podcast in and of itself, right? Right, Michelle? We could go on for hours.
Michelle, we're going to do like 87 more topics each time we get on here. You know that, right?
Well, like I said, I hadn't told anyone for an episode 3, but I think we just recorded that statement from Egypt. So I think we have it on recording, which is perfect because we are at about time for episode 2, and it does segue perfectly to 3. So, and it's recorded. So I want to thank you all for your time this afternoon. This has been a fantastic discussion. It went in all wonderful directions. I mean, from my perspective, I'm hearing for folks who are early on, for folks who are in current transition due to all the reasons, like there's nuggets that folks can take away wherever they are in their paths. So I appreciate you sharing all that you bring to the table from your experiences in mentoring, which is amazing. It is a transition. I love the EDA you were talking about. You kind of hit that point where you're like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm sorry, me? Oh, okay, I can do.
Yeah, no one taps you on the shoulder to be like, you arrived. Like if you're, it's like when I became a mom, someone said, if you're waiting for your Mom of the Year award, FYI, it's not coming. Like it's not even in the mail. Like you'd like stop clearing out space on your mantle for it. It doesn't exist. It's the same thing. No one ever really tells you when you arrive, but you do have this moment when people start asking for your advice that you're like, I think I might have something valuable to say. Gosh, I hope I have something valuable to say.
Yeah. When your name gets put in the hat, when you're given a seat at the table,
Yeah, it's a whole nother level. So I appreciate you all sharing your perspectives in that space. I anticipate that our community will be as receptive as to part 2 as they are for part 1. And again, recorded that you're all interested in part 3. So,
now Edie's gonna have me thinking about LinkedIn like Tinder.
She's gonna be trying to swipe while she's doing LinkedIn later today.
I wish I could swipe sometimes and then like, oh, let's see this anymore.
No, that's not gonna work, Sheree.
oh gosh, I'm like, well, again, thank you all very much. We'll be getting this out to the community and probably in July is going to go into our amazing production phase with Eric. And then stay tuned, folks, because we have a lot more to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to The Bridge. Your health, your voice. To learn more about the Patience Program, visit our website at www.patience.umaryland.edu.